It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Before we get into this episode, please do me a favor. Pause this episode really quickly and leave us a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. It helps us go up in the rankings, helps us reach more people with this message. And you will get a shout out if you leave a review. So looking forward to hearing from you. Very excited about this episode today. Here with me, I have Austin Smith, who was actually a guest on episode 31 about 2 years ago. So very excited to talk about what he's been up to since then. A whole lot of great things we're going to get into on this episode. Austin, appreciate you coming back on the show, man.
Nah, all love, man. You know, we were just talking about it before we hit the record button. Everything is just to provide that dialogue for our community. Everything is just about, you know, just showing what's possible, either on a small scale and a large scale, which is why I love the diversity in the success models. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of podcasts usually try to have like the big names or you know how one person went from 0 doors to 240 in the next 6 months, and you know those are the special stories. So those are great, but I love how you've documented like the individuals that are just getting their foot in the door all the way up to the big scale individuals. So always love, and you're always showing love, always shouting out. So we're here for it, man. All good.
Definitely. All right, man. Let's get right into it. So you
Let's
had
jump
a
into
pretty
it.
dope investment recently in Cleveland. And for those who don't know, make sure you listen to episode 31. You get the backstory. But you live and you invest in New Jersey, and it seemed like things are going well in New Jersey. So tell me about just going out to Cleveland and buying a property out there.
Yeah, so we experienced the same thing like that most of the major markets, right? Like we're 25 minutes, 22 minutes outside of the biggest city population wise, right? Like in the country, being New York City. And eventually that tidal wave is going to hit, everything just like an atomic bomb, and it spreads out where the gentrification, the rising prices, things like that. Jersey was bound to get it, and they still continue to get it, right? So like most major expensive markets, eventually you're going to be tapped out, and there's only but so much that you can really be able to afford. And what I mean afford is that eventually you're going to have issues with your debt to income ratio, meaning that because the prices are so high, and mind you, Jersey, from a state perspective, we're number one in the country when it comes down to property taxes. Off the rip, the highest in the country when it comes down to property taxes. Yeah, there was a report that came out that like New York City was the highest, but that's why like you have to be careful, because that's New York City. There's New York City and then there's New York State. But all that to say, New Jersey's high in property taxes, and with our rising prices, we were not able to go after the same deals with the same amount of capital. So that forces us, along with most investors, right? Anybody that's, obviously you're in LA, you see what's happening in LA, and eventually you're going to have to find a way to still scale, and at the same time, like have your dollar go further than when it's already doing, right? So Cleveland came up just off of the strength that we had been going through a couple of cities. We checked out Philly, which was at that point a cheaper market. We checked out certain parts of like Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, things like that. But Cleveland stood out because of the simple fact that as I was Googling, I was Zillowing, just like what do the properties look like? What are the property values? Cleveland stood out because it reminded me of where we have majority of our investments, which is Newark, New Jersey, and Cleveland, and 2 other cities, Hartford, Connecticut, and Worcester. I think it's Worcester. Don't or however you pronounce it, right? Massachusetts, where they had a very, very similar style of multifamily properties that we found here in Jersey. We went to Philly. Vibe-wise, we didn't like it. There's plenty of successful investors in Philly, obviously. We went to Boston, which Worcester. I'm gonna call it Worcester. You can sue me after. I have no idea how to pronounce it. But we went there. The vibe just didn't feel right for whatever reason. And we went to Cleveland, and it was so funny. And I tell this story that my parents had always, when I was younger, we would go to Disney World when I was 8, 9. And I always remember being on the flight where when we landed, everybody on the flight clapped, right? For like everybody clapped. I just distinctly remember that everybody on the flight clapped. As I got older and as me and my wife started taking more trips, like when we landed, nobody else on the plane clapped. But it was so weird for me because I was so used to that. We get to Cleveland, we fly out to Cleveland because we were like, let's check this out. And when we landed, everybody on the plane clapped. And it was very nostalgic and it was very like, this is a good sign. Mind you, still got to feel good, but it just felt good. And we actually genuinely like just had fun in the city to the point where, and this is for everybody that's listening, you have to feel good in order to bust the move no matter what happens with that move, right? So like I can take it if I felt good about it, it looked good, it like energy, and then like if things weren't working out how they were supposed to, I can take that. What I can't take is if I didn't feel good about it, if I didn't like it, if I was just going off of what people were saying, still made that move, and if it didn't work out, I'd be more pissed off about that part. So long story short, we went to Cleveland, it felt good. And then at that point, I just knew it was a much cheaper market where our dollars from New Jersey, which I know New Jersey isn't the sexiest state, but where our dollars in New Jersey could go farther.
Got it. And so, I really want to emphasize a point you made a couple times is that if you're in an expensive market or whatever market you're in, whatever city you live in, you may be able to invest there for a while, but if you may have to get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere else to keep growing. And I really want people to understand that because it's the reality for a lot of people today,
Right.
Like the places, or even people who invest out of state already in the city they're used to, there's no more deals. You might have to pack your bags, so to speak, and try something else. So I think it's great that you were able to recognize that.
Yeah, because you're in Ohio too, I believe.
Yeah.
So you already caught the wave. Like you
Yeah.
already like if they're about to listen and all of a sudden get like Cleveland from me, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, oh, I need to invest out of state. Then like I'm here to tell everybody that like Sam's been pushing this out here for like since he closed on his crib, I'm sure. Right. So like he's already doing it. He's already doing it. So it's cool to have a refreshing person on it. But the reality is that you've been communicating this, and I've been watching it like off the rip because you bought your property before we did. You know what I'm saying? So like we saw that and was like, okay, that's more of a reaffirmation that like we just don't have to invest in our backyard, right? And a lot of people love a lot of people love to touch things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's weird because everybody wants to touch their properties until it's time to make repairs, right? Like all of a sudden they don't want to touch the property, they don't want to go to the property, they don't want to deal with the property. You know what I mean? They just want to hire somebody to go fix it. But for whatever reason, in order to pull the trigger from an investment standpoint, they got to touch it, right? So we saw the consistency of people that were starting to buy like out of state for that very reason. So like to your point, like all we did was just follow the model of like, I'm in an expensive environment. Where else can I buy? It's just that simple question. Like, where else can I buy? The same problem's gonna happen that are out of state, or the same problem's gonna happen like whether you're living in the property. So I've lived in, me and wifey, shout out to wifey, but we've lived in our properties where the mistakes were happening, right? Like, So we lived in the basement, we rented out on our first property, we lived in the basement, rented out the other 2 units. And when the toilet was messed up, when this didn't work, we were in the property, but we still had to fix it. So nothing's different.
Right. Definitely. And so, it sounds like just from getting in Cleveland, you're like, all right, I think this could be a good place for us. Was there any other indicators, any other signs or data or anything that made you two feel like it was a good place to make the next investment?
110%. And this was kind of one in any environment, right? Because like it's so weird that like we're completely fine investing in our own backyard, but we don't know any market data. But we're just so familiar with it that it just comes down to the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing in any other place. You know what I mean? Like that's the same exact thing. But don't get me wrong, right? Like as investors, like we're looking at certain things a little bit differently. So we want to respect that. Cleveland as a city, you're almost talking about 400,000 people, right? As a city, it's still a city, right? Still a major city, 400,000 people, 75% of the population rents. We like renters, right? We like tenants, right? 75% of the population rents, and we're in a landlord-friendly state. Now, New Jersey, along with New York, they are tenant-friendly states, right? Which from a business perspective, which you have to separate like the people from like the business aspect of it. But that's like going, like if you're a restaurant entrepreneur and you go into a state that only supports cafes, like it's going to be harder for you to open up like your fine dining Michelin rated restaurant, right? So in that particular case, it was landlord friendly, 400,000 people, 75% of the rents. And not only that, I just looked at and just considered the fact that there's only a certain amount of major cities in America, right? When you pull out a map, all the major cities are going to be on that map. From afar, when you scroll out, right? You're going to get the state first, then you're going to get the capital, and then you're going to get those cities. All in, that's where you collect all the other cities and so on and so forth. But they're always going to pinpoint the major cities on a map. So Cleveland as a city, from inflation, from business moves, from California getting too expensive, New York getting too expensive for businesses and for people, there's only a certain amount of time that this city can stay this cheap, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at the housing index, it's done nothing but go up. And we have so much trauma from 2008 that everybody's like, I can't wait for the crash. Prices drop 50%, 40%, 30%, so on and so forth. But they fail to realize how many years the housing prices and housing price index did nothing but go up. So in the grand scheme of things, businesses, people, they're going to see, because there's a bunch of people that are moving from Jersey and either going down south or out west. And I mean like Midwest, not like LA West, right? But they're going Midwest. They're going to cheaper areas because these places are getting expensive, whether it's for business or whether it's for personal. So I think those were the things that originally made me want to invest there. And because the houses and the layouts of the house really, really reminded us of where we started our investments. And it's crazy. And maybe I might have to like give you the 2 pictures so you can post it.
Yeah.
But the first property that we ever bought looks like the very first property that we bought in Cleveland.
That's crazy.
Right? So it gives us the confidence to move forward no matter what happens. And so that's why we invested in Cleveland. And then all the news came out of, the Forbes of Cleveland being, one of the top destinations for investors. That's before the news that I believe Intel made some moves in Cleveland. And I'll give you one last reason why we chose Cleveland. They have one of the biggest medical industries there, obviously, right? With the Cleveland Clinic, right? And obviously us, we're coming from Corona. Safe to say the healthcare industry is intact. They ain't going nowhere. That's that.
Definitely.
So those are the reasons.
Definitely. Man, there's one thing you mentioned about 08, 09, and it's so crazy because what I just tell people is like, I was like a kid at that time, like, 17, 18, whatever. But it's like, people need to understand the real estate industry is nothing like it was back then. Everybody has a family member who either lost their home, refinanced a bunch of times, or it was a wild, wild west back then. And since then,
Right.
there's a lot. I mean, people still get scammed and stuff, but it's a lot more regulation. Like, I personally don't see a crash coming. You're in the industry, selling and so forth. I want to hear what your thoughts are on that. Cause I'm sure clients probably, I'm just assuming, have probably told you, oh, I want to wait till the market crash, till prices go down. How you know it's going to happen?
Listen, man, and they still waiting, by the way. But it's the big speculation around the crash, right? I'm not going to say that a crash is not going to happen, right? Only because I think people think as the crash as the absolute worst thing and not just part of a normal business cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening, to give you context, is that us as people, right, we're up and then we have to go to sleep at some point, right? Because if you don't get sleep, then something bad eventually is going to happen if you don't go to sleep. Sure, you can pull that all-nighter, you can get 2 hours worth of sleep and still be, on your grind the next day, so on and so forth. But eventually you're gonna get tired to the point where like you're gonna pose health risk to yourself. Just natural, just natural. What's happening right now is the government has just given the real estate market and industry so much caffeine, AKA like the stimulus, the printing of money, just all of that quantitative easing, to the point where the real estate market is literally bloodshot, like eyes, but it's still operating because they pump so much caffeine into the market. The reality also too is the government does not want another 2008. They don't. I just sent a post about it like the other day. They're going to give you a 40-year mortgage as a loan modification, not a new mortgage, a modification. So what does that tell you? It's not the people that are buying new, that are new buyers, that are bringing new money into the markets. These are the people that are already bought their house, and God forbid if they need to make a loan modification, the government's like, yo, we'll tack on an extra 10 years. They will make sure that this real estate market will not crash. Do I think it'll crash? Do I think that the next stage is for it to crash? No. I think that prices are going to level off.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to teeter off.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is we are so scorned and so traumatized by 2008 that builders weren't even doing what they were supposed to do from 2000, and I would say 9 or 10-ish, until now, where now, and I'd say the past 5 years, 6 years, they're like, oh crap, we don't have enough supply,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't built enough homes for people to go into, like off the rip. And in those particular cases, that's why I don't feel like a crash is coming. And I'll just give you just the personality like aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because so many people are waiting for the crash, what happens when prices drop just a little bit? They're going to be like, oh, this is the crash. Let me buy into it. And they're going to keep the prices like stable. Or it's going to be a very, very light drop.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people are waiting for it, anticipating, can't wait to get into the market, can't for the crash per se, that like when prices drop a little bit and people are going to be jumping into it. I think investors, this period, this run, this massive bull run, investors have made up the most that they've ever had as far as like a buying demographic than they've ever had. So I would gladly, like whenever it happens, whenever like it starts to teeter off, we're gonna start buying. Like we're gonna start buying automatically. And there's gonna be the demand right there.
Right.
So I need people to realize like fundamentally, we have a major supply issue. And to finish it off, exactly what you said, which is people like just from everything that happened in 2008, and obviously the collateral damage and everything that has happened for that, for people to realize that so many things have to happen wrong in order for your housing market to collapse. So you said it to the T. It was the wild, wild west back then. Very, very wild, wild west. And people don't realize that. Very, very wild, wild west. There's a lot more regulation. There's a lot more restrictions. There's a lot more contingencies. There's a lot more of a checklist that needs to happen in order for you to purchase a property these days. So like that's, you know, there's a lot of things that have to go. Oh, and the biggest thing was, and I'm trying to find the research on it, but the one of the biggest things was that people were buying off of speculation in 2008, right? So they were treating it like almost like stock, where it's just like, yo, if you buy like .com bubble, right? Like, like the same thing. If you just buy this, you're guaranteed to make money off the appreciation. We don't buy for appreciation. I buy for cash flow. Buying for appreciation requires you to buy at the right time. Buying for cash flow requires you to buy at the right price. I can control what price I pay. I can't control the timing that I bought it.
Love it. Love it. Love it, man. Awesome. So back to Cleveland. Walk us through your first deal, how you found it, and just what happened, how you were able to figure out that this was the right property.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's the same method. I don't say method, but as far as getting to the point where you're pulling the trigger, which is the same way, you know, for you, where you looked at it of like, what am I putting in versus what am I getting out? It's very simple. And at that point, I'm not about to sit here and tell you like I did because a lot of people, I don't know why, like they want to make it so much harder than it needs to be, but they want to find a foreclosure that's also in tax default, that also like has a like is also a short sale, right? That they like they make it so much harder than like what it needs to be. And I found this deal right off the MLS. I had my agent that was out there because I'm with EXP Realty. Shout out to EXP Realty. And I said, listen, this is my first deal. I don't need nothing crazy. I don't need no major like fixer-upper. I don't need none of that to start because I'm not there. And I'm not like, I don't want to get into those. But we had equity in one of our properties. And the part that people need to realize, like if you're sitting on $150,000, $200,000 in equity, that's the same thing as dead cash. Like that's the same thing as you have in equity, like, or quote unquote, that's the same thing as you having cash in the bank. It's useless because it's there unless you either refinance, bring it out, whether you sell the property, take out a HELOC, but it's just sitting there. So we had a lot of money in equity in our first property that we bought. And I was just like, listen, I just like to get my feet wet. I just want to park the cash, right? It's easy to do 20% down there, right? We're on a $120,000 property, which at that point, that plus the closing costs will end up being like 30 grand. And I just wanted to, one, break the ice of buying out of state. And then we can get all into the like nitty gritty and all the like amazing deals and so on and so forth. But let's just buy it, 20% down. I still want to hit my numbers as far as a cash on cash return. But we found it right on the MLS. It was a duplex, and and it's weird because like I don't even go after duplexes anymore. But this is because it was in a different state. Like we wanted to at least like get our feet wet. But I'll say this: I'll never go after a duplex that's just the same unit on both floors. So if it's a 2-bed, 1 bath, on the first floor, and if it's a 2-bed, 1-bath on the second floor, and that's it. Like I'm what I found is that doesn't make you the return.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the number one place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
The third floor is finished, where the second unit has the second floor and third floor combined.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So they almost had this. So they have 2 levels. They have 2 levels, even though that's the second unit.
Wow.
And you're able to command more in rent. I'm never going to go after something that's just 2 units. I'm sorry, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath on the first unit, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath on the second unit. Unless it's an amazing deal, like obviously. But for the numbers, I needed nothing less than a triplex, or I needed a duplex with something that's finished so I can rent out the second and third floor just, combined. But I called my agent. We were like, here's what we're looking for. Here's what we're trying to do. Put me up on your search. I'm going to run the numbers, and then we're going to make offers from there. That's it. Property came out. We were actually under contract at one point. And this is why I said like it's a journey, like, and I don't want to scare people off, but at one point we were we were under contract on 11 units total. We were on we had our offer accepted on 11 units total.
Wow.
And I want people to realize that like you're like submit offers. You are not bound to anything. There's ways that you can back out the deal if it doesn't work. So we were submitting offers. We wound up getting a couple offers accepted. Amazing. But the deal itself still has to prove itself to us. So we did our home inspection. All of a sudden, maybe it was too much work, right? The seller misrepresented their quote unquote problem in the basement. It wound up being even more. But all that to say is that we wound up not going after this property was one of the 11 units. So, so we wound up not going after those because of some repairs or home inspection or appraisal or whatever the case. And then we wind up closing on this particular property. But straight off the MLS, and that's how we got it done.
Love it. Dope. So you're in the rehab process now, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, because that wasn't the plan, right? So and we could talk about the bad too, right? So this is just real, but it's costing me a little bit more than what I thought it was going to, right? Just in total transparency. And in that particular case, again, which is why not to say that I don't care, but it's an amazing learning lesson.
Right.
Because I got 30, and mind you, I'm blessed at least for the college or university that I went to, but we spent money for school, right? So my student loan debt, so on and so forth. I'm spending 30 grand on something I've never done before, or I'm sorry, spending 30 grand on something I've done before, just in an environment that I haven't done it in before. And if it costs an extra 5,000 that I wasn't planning on spending, an extra 10 grand, it doesn't matter in the long run.
Right.
The reason why is because this is going to pay me. And it's just a great learning experience because one, I've developed the team that I need in order to continue to scale there. I've now learned that if I'm in New Jersey, Cleveland is 20 degrees colder in New Jersey. So we closed on the property, and I was trying to get the gas on for the longest. Like, I don't even know why it took that long, but one of my pipes burst,
Oh,
like
wow.
in the property. Yeah, annoying, right? But like nothing that you're not gonna encounter as you keep doing this business, right? So we're almost finished. We're almost finished, so we're happy about that. And then we're gonna get tenants in there. We're gonna let it do its thing. And I, like we were talking before, I wanna get that first rental check, so that way I know that it's real, that it's real. Because at that point it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. Like, we're going after big units and big units only.
Definitely. Love it, man. And then you also had a recent deal that you structured very creatively. So tell us more about that too. You know, you got stuff going on in Cleveland. You got stuff going on at home. You just got a whole lot going on right now. So tell us more about it. You're killing the
Yeah,
game right now, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We, it's humbling to see, like, so we, me and wife here at 16 units now, and it's humbling to watch the journey, because it's all documented. Like, it was just like, it all started with the first property, and there's nothing different. And I'm gonna come on this platform. I'm speaking it into existence, and we'll see what happens. I'm not even about to play the superstitious end or none of that. This is just what's real, what's facts. But we're in the process of trying to close something out in LA, which is very, 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 very special, at least for us, and at least for wifey, since she was born and raised out there. So hopefully everything goes well with that. That'll be another very, very creative deal. But the one that we just closed, long story short, especially under your personal name. Under your personal name, the Cleveland property is in an LLC. Under your personal name, they're going to look at your personal debt to income ratio. They're going to do the same thing like on the LLC end, but they are more concerned, like there's personal lending, and then there's asset-based lending. So Cleveland is more of an asset-based, well, not even more, but Cleveland, I had to get an asset-based lender, because they just looked at if the property can sustain itself from a rental income aspect. They'll look at your income and credit score and things like that, just to make sure that, that you're not just terrible with money, but it's all about the property. When it's under your name, and that's where you get the best rates and things like that. But when it's under your name, they're going to look at your personal debt. They're going to have, I'm sorry, they're going to be more, they're going to like scrutinize your debt to income ratio a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And me and wifey had already had 3 properties in our names at that point. Yeah, already had 3 properties in our name. So the only reason why and as a matter of fact, the only reason why I couldn't qualify for myself was because we had bought a property in 2020. Let me make sure I got my numbers right. Yes, we had bought a property in 2020. We closed in November. Mm-hmm. I only had December's worth of rental income that I was able to claim on my 2020's taxes when I filed my taxes in April of 2021. So they only saw the 1 month worth of rental income. So in order to qualify for the property that I just bought, I needed the full year's worth of rental income from that property, mm-hmm. which although I didn't claim taxes yet, because I'm claiming taxes now. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm filing taxes now for 2021.
Right.
And the deal came to me like last year. And we needed to move quick. We had to close on the property because the seller was just completely fed up with it, and they had to sell. So I was like, all right. And I was battling a cash investor. To keep it G, I was battling a Jewish cash investor. Mm-hmm. And to keep it even more G, because I'm an agent, the Jewish investor was my buyer. So the property originally, when I was marketing and things like that, the property came, the seller was like, hey, I'm ready to sell. I was like, perfect, I got a buyer ready for you. It wasn't that buyer. It wasn't the Jewish buyer. It wasn't the cash buyer yet. I had a buddy that I was working with, and we were under contract. Mm-hmm. I was his agent. I was acting as his agent. but there was a straight tenant. There was a squatter tenant.
Right.
And he was a first-time investor, and he was also out of state. And he really didn't feel comfortable with taking on a squatter tenant as his first property. Not to mention, he had just gave birth to his amazing, beautiful son, and it was a lot for that family to take on. Right at that time, once that and that deal died, unfortunately, and I was looking at it, and I'm not even gonna lie, while we were going through the transaction, and I felt like he was getting cold feet, I was like, let me call, like, because I know the guy, I know the cash buyer, and he buys properties that have squatter tenants and things like that. So I already had experience of working with them. So I was like, let me call him, right? So I call him, the deal dies. I call him, I'm like, yo, check this property out, so on and so forth. And it's in a predominantly Black neighborhood, North New Jersey. And he walks through the property. He's on the phone, by the way, and he's having a separate conversation. Not even he's not talking to a business partner. He's not talking to his lender, his attorney. He's just having a whole separate conversation about Lord knows what, right? He's walking through the property, so on and so forth. And then he's like, all right, I'll take it. And at that point, I was like, if I'm an investor, if I'm truly doing this, then I have to take this property down myself. So we wound up taking the property down, but I couldn't qualify because of everything that I just mentioned.
Right.
And I couldn't use my wife because she had already 2 properties in her name, and the debt to income ratio wasn't working. So I was like, okay, here's the perfect opportunity to bring in a credit partner. Here's what I need from that credit partner. I put it on social media, literally as my story. Hey, I got this deal. I need somebody to help me fund it. Not fund it. I needed a credit partner because I was going to fund the entire deal. I just needed a credit partner for the qualifications, debt to income ratio wise, because I hadn't filed taxes yet. An individual raised her hand. Shout out to Asia, and it sounds so weird because my wife's name is Asia. That's how I knew it was ordained. But my wife's name is Asia. Our credit partner's name is Asia. And she raised her hand. She was always studying, always asking me questions, always, always would pop up at the meetups. And she was like, hey, I'm interested, let me know. And long story short, we got her to help us qualify just on the credit partner end, which just simply means that she brought in her financial profile. She didn't have to put no money up. All she had to do was lend us her financial profile in order for us to close on the deal, in order for me to file taxes, which is already done. And now I'm going to refinance, and then she's going to be off of the mortgage, off of title, so on and so forth. But I'm going to pay her a percentage, or I'm going to pay her a portion of the monthly profits that we see from that property. And she was just so happy to just be part of the process, just to get her feet wet. And that's how we creatively structured that deal in order to get it done. Because it had $125,000 in equity in it. It was going to make us, about $1,500 to $1,600 a month in cash flow. So I knew I had to take it down, and we just had to find a way to get it done. And shout out to Asia for helping us get it done.
Love it, man. Yeah, you have to dive more into that creative aspect when you come talk to the community, man.
Oh, 110%. Because eventually you're gonna run out of excuse me. Eventually you're gonna run out of money. Unless we're all sitting on millions, right? You're gonna run out of money. And even if you're just sitting on millions, you're not going after $200,000 properties. You're going after the $1 million properties. And eventually, you're gonna get so used to those deals that you're gonna tap out eventually. That's part of the game. Partnerships in general is just how you continue to scale, whether you like it or not. That's just how that's just how you're able to scale.
Definitely, man. Well, man, you got a whole lot going on. I'm excited. I was thinking about the first episode and just you talking about where you and your wife had grown to at that point 2 years ago, and now to see you're invested out of state, you're creatively finding more deals locally as well. I just think this is gonna be a dope episode. It's gonna be a dope episode, man. I can't wait to put it out. Is there anything else you want to leave with the listeners? Anything else that they should know about what you're doing now and what you have planned?
Yeah, unapologetically, you know, mindset wise, we're gonna continue to expand the portfolio. We're gonna continue to expand the units. I'm definitely 150% gonna be starting a fund, or gonna be starting just like, hey, listen, like here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go bigger, right? Like stuff that really gets people out of bed, you know. $1 million property, 25% down is 250,000, right? If you already own a home, you probably got at least 50,000 in equity. You know, bare minimum, if you bought like last year or 2 years ago, you probably have that equity sitting, either that or in you know, and it's not that big. Like it's not that big. And we're all doing this together. And that's why you're literally highlighting the success stories of the investors that look like us, so that way we can just get really familiar with the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what I want to stress to everybody that's listening is that, like, enough of the knowledge, we got the knowledge, like we got the podcast, we got the articles, we got all of that. The biggest thing is what you're doing just off of the connection piece, which goes so much farther than the information. The information is amazing. But eventually we get information overload, and then we take no action. So in that particular case, like we're here to do it, right? Enough with the learning. We've done the learning. Now let's start, like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just start now looking at deals. Just start connecting with the local wholesalers, agents, other investors in the market. Just, if you have to, and I'm not even suggesting it, because as an agent, if it was something that was listed, I'd be pissed off. But like, if you just have to submit an offer, just to learn what it's like to submit an offer, get it accepted, and then take it back, do that. But at least you're like putting that energy out there of like, we're about to do this somehow, some way. So that, you know, for the listeners, that's what, like, because you're giving the goal, bro. You're giving the goal. You're bringing out the best in the game. Like, they can't tell us like that they don't have the knowledge. They can't tell you that you haven't provided the knowledge. You've given enough fish for these individuals to eat for years. But if they don't pick up the fish and put it in their mouth and chew and eat it, then I don't know what else like they want you to do. I don't know what else they want, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've done it all. And now we just need to take it a step further of actually putting into the, I mean, you've done it. You've purchased the property out of state. You're a walking testimony of it. So anybody that's coming and listening to your podcast and they're just coming for information or entertainment, or I won't say information. If they're coming for entertainment, they're missing the mark of, and it's almost disrespectful to your goals. You know what I mean? Because you're not bringing it for entertainment. You're bringing it to truly have a major impact on the ability for people to act. So all that to say that, you know, take all the information, rightfully so, but now eventually, like, we're gonna have to start acting on it.
Definitely. And where can people find you? Where can people keep up with what you have going on, keep in touch with you, reach out to you?
Yeah, Austin, aka More Than an Agent _. This is why I truly am saying that I'm more than an agent. This is not about just like helping the happy home buyer find their first home. This is why I've developed a business to business mentality. Because at the end of the day, like, the average person moves every 7 years or so, if that. Moving is annoying as hell. It's annoying as hell. So no one's about to like buy their first home with the like intent of moving ASAP. So because of that, from a business standpoint, I can only service you and help you once. until like you go to sell. But if I help you invest, then at that point, you can buy multiple properties. I'm helping you make money. The business is making money. We're all making money, increasing our wealth, and more importantly, increasing our time. So that way, if you want to go travel the world, me and my wife love traveling. If you want to just like chill with like be more on the philanthropic end, you can do that. So that's why I say I'm more than an agent. I'm an investor. I'm a coach. I'm a therapist when things are not going right in this market. I'm gonna be your drinking buddy, right? Like this is just the reality of it. But we're going to make sure that we push the needle forward, and you're gonna make sure that, or I'm gonna make sure that you understand what it is to buy properties.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on, man. And for those who are listening, this conversation will continue, and it will continue in the bread investing community. So if you want to hear more game from Austin, I highly recommend you join the bread investing community. You can get started for just $1 in your first week. Click the link below in the show notes, and you can join and tap in to the next part of this conversation. Also, if you haven't already, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review. It takes just a few seconds. We really appreciate it. And definitely thank you all again for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Look forward to hearing from you all soon.
All love.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.